In this session, we will take a look at the alerting module. Once you've logged into the central interface, if you scroll down, you'll see there's an events dashboard that shows you the alerts that are being generated. You can customize the default alerts as you please, and you can add rules that's specific to your needs, etc., to the environment. To access the alerting module, you can click on alerts on the left-hand side, which will present you with the same alerts dashboard that you saw previously. To give yourself more real estate to work with for SOC type services, etc., you can use the minimize button on the bar on the left to give yourself a little bit more space. The rules that have been created by the system, that there are some defaults included that you can use as templates to create your own that's specific to your environment and the type of logs that you have. And you can duplicate these, you can rename them, you can do whatever you like with them. Please note that any changes you may make are persistent. So if you wipe out the default rule set, you will have to create them manually. If we look at the NIDS miner, for example, it will show you there's a graph that shows you the number of matches that you've seen. It'll show you what the name is, what indexes it applies to, etc., the status, if it's enabled or disabled, time type ISO and the time field. You can zoom in and out into the actual times graph that's here. If you have events here, it'll show multiple columns, etc. And then if you want to see the more in-depth settings, you can right or just click on the three-dot button and you can click edit. This will show you the filter that's in use. Now, the filter depends entirely on what your use case is that you're going for. You will notice that we use the hybrid matching model. So first we would do a positive match. We look for something specific. And then what we will do then is filter it down from there with negative matching. So for example, if I take the event channel, you can see that this is just a positive match, as well as the NIDS miner. Let's use the alert miner as an example. Edit. And you can see here that I'm filtering negatively and positively. So it will include some and exclude others, and you can either start with a negative match, so you can use the index as a whole. You can then filter out the primaries that you don't want based on fields, rule groups, whichever criteria that you want to filter it on. So you can either filter for or for not having those types of fields. And you can then use the opposite to filter further down the line. So positive matching means you look for a specific field with a specific value, and negative matching means that you're excluding a specific field with a specific value. A hybrid means that you're using a combination of the two to be more efficient. And the reason you do that is because it allows you to hone the rules specific to your needs, so that you don't flood the events dashboard with events that the SOC will never be able to process. So this is part of the standard operating procedure that you can use while utilizing the platform, and it ensures that you fine-tune things to a degree that is capable of within the capabilities of the SOC team to manage properly. In general, it varies between SOC teams. You can have SOC teams that can process 50, 60, or even higher number of events that are dissimilar per day per individual. And in other cases, you can get SOC teams that can do 2 to 3. The lower that number is that they can successfully process in a day when it comes to unique events, that is dependent on the team. And you will then also have to adapt your rule sets according to that. If you look at these ones, you can see they have a high level of complexity. and you can make rules as simple or as complex as you want. Wildcards are supported. You can use asterisk. Please note that if you precede a value and you trail the value with an asterisk, you're basically doing plain text searches over a large volume of events. This will slow down your searches. This could stall your alerting subsystem, as well as give you rise to a whole bunch of false positives, etc. So use wildcards only when you have no other options available. This is true for all large data searches over whatever platform you choose, be it databases, Elasticsearch, etc. This is just generally good practice. So if you do use them sparingly and only if they are absolutely required. You will notice that there is an issue here. You can see that there's two fields for location, vulnerability detector and Office 365, and they don't have an operator in between them. Be careful of situations like these. These should have an or an and, or and not, etc., and so on in between them. And the reason for that is that if you don't include that, it will try both permutations, which will increase your CPU utilization and essentially overburden the system unnecessarily just because no operator was specified. Please note items like that. In cases where the system strips those out automatically, you don't have to re-add them back. The system will obviously choose the most efficient path to get to the results that you want. If you scroll down, you will see that there are fields that you can fill in, like the subject line. So this would be the event descriptor as such, and you can add variables to that. You can add static text to that. So if you look at the front piece, you can see that static text, and if you look at this, you will see that those are two variables that have been included. The first one is rule description and the second one is agent name. You do not need to remember the syntax for these. You can very easily add your own variable by just doing percentage and then selecting the field that you want to add from the drop down. So if you, for example, pick that one, you will see that it automatically generates the search string for that variable for you. So you don't need to memorize the formatting, etc. If you like manually creating these, you're welcome to, but you don't need to do that. The body text, same process applies. You can have static text, you can have variable extraction, you can modify these to your heart's content. Whatever data fields that you feel are pertinent to your environment, you can include there. You can strip it down to the bare minimums if you just want the basics. It is completely your prerogative how verbose or lack of verbosity you want to include inside this. Your severity is quite important because that will indicate in the event dashboard what your severity is that you're facing with the alert that you've created or with the matches that you've created. So these are important to set accordingly. Your resource is always the tenant that you're currently working in. These alert rules that are created are tenant specific. They are not for all tenants at the same time. And the reason for the resource field is so that you can identify in the events dashboard which tenant you received the alert from. As a side note to that, you would notice that there are alert minor, which is this rule name, and then additional details there. The rule name is included so that if you see an event come through that's listed in the events dashboard, that you will actually know where that event originated from. We have seen it in the past where customers have removed that, where they put in just a rule description and they don't know which of the alerting rules matched and created that specific alert that they're looking at, and they want to fine tune it further. So it is always good practice to include the alert name into the name or the description that's actually being sent out for this. You can add a group here as well. So if it's, for example, you're monitoring for firewall changes and there's a specific firewall subset, like maybe a region, etc., you can specify that as a group. It allows you to filter it in the forthcoming versions of SIEMonster, because we will bring in searches for the events dashboard. From a tags perspective, you can add as many tags as you like. Again, static text or variable text, depending on what your needs are. If you want to add additional, you just click the addition button and you specify the data in the field. This helps to filter out the data quickly at a glance in the events dashboard and makes it more efficient. You'll notice that there's an additional tab here, which is for the incident response. These fields can be edited. The source should always say external, and the type should, you can name it different things, etc., but we generally recommend that you leave it on last alert. And then your severity ranges from 1 through 5, 1 being critical and 5 being minor. You can set it anywhere in between. The reason for the two different severities is that you have a different severity field placed in the incident response as in comparison to the events monitor dashboard. The data that is configured here is explicit and specifically for the incident response side of things. The traffic light protocol you can set as well, that your green, your amber, and your yellow, etc. We will go into more depth into that into another video. For now, your TLPs you can set, if you're familiar with it, to whatever you prefer. Status is always waiting, and then the important one is your observables. So observables can automatically be enriched once they are imported as a case in the incident response. So if you're getting network intrusion detection events, you'll have nefarious or noted public IPs that are doing scans on your external interfaces, or they're trying to do remote file inclusion or local file inclusion on your web servers, etc. So those IPs you would ultimately like to have in here, for example, and you can use that to actually enrich and see if they've been spotted before and if they have been found nefarious. So again, percentage, and you can select the field that you want. You just specify the observable type as IP, for example, but it's not limited to IP. There's a whole host of different fields that you can put in here. You've got the URI path, you have FQDNs, you have hashes, you have mail subject. There's a whole host of them that you can use. As long as you map them to the correct fields, you'll be able to ingest those as observables and then make the relevant changes. Once you have made your changes and you are happy with the results, you can just click save, which will update the rule accordingly, and the next time it is hit by an event, it will go through with your modifications intact. Once you have your alerts configured, they will all come through in the alerts dashboard, and you can review them here. You can see these the tags that were specified, etc. You can see the original events, which will be displayed in JSON format. You can see the history, so this will give you evolution on severity, status, etc. And then you can also look at the raw event data if present. So this is that body text that you modified for your specific criteria, and you can, as I said, you can modify these to whatever your needs are. If you decide that you want to send one of these through to incident response or further processing, you can just click send to IR, and it will send it through to incident response. If you want to permanently send something through, you can just toggle the auto send to IR, and in every case where it is hit, it will send it through to incident response. You will notice that there's a duplicate counter for events, So this is to minimize the number of events that SOC analysts have to process. It will deduplicate items that match the criteria that you've got. The counter for duplicates may or may not be an indicator of some kind of its own. So you may have events that come in over a period of time, and they could escalate during specific times of day, etc. If you suddenly have 1,000 messages for a specific account failing to log on to a specific server, then that in itself is something that needs to be reviewed. It could be that credentials have expired, or a script was incorrectly configured, or it could be that somebody is trying to brute force an account. Maybe there's no GPO for intruder lockout, so that's something to check for. Those are all important. Once you send items to incident response, you can process them further from there. That covers the alerting section. More advanced videos will be released of the alerting section and additional items that can be performed. This video is more like an introduction that will give you the basics and get you up and running as quickly as possible. Hope you enjoyed the video, and please check the docs.SIEMonster.com site for additional videos that have been created, as well as written documentation. Thank you very much.